I want you to ask yourself, what is a dream car? This phrase is a colloquialism to describe the vehicle that speaks to you the most. The vehicle of highest desire and infatuation. The one that makes you feel something special. If you ask 100 people what their dream car is, you'll likely receive 100 different answers, and all of them are correct. For the general population and automotive enthusiasts alike, if you ask them about their dream car, there is a good chance a specific vehicle will be disclosed. A dream car can be a representation of a bygone era, a time capsule showcasing a particular point in both human and automotive history. It can be an exotic, with their sexy body lines and exclusivity of ownership. It can be an American muscle car, with their roaring V8s and iconic shapes that have been the objects of infatuation for many for 60 years or more. It can be a truck, whether low or lifted, diesel or gas, small or large, on-road or off-road. It can be a refined European vehicle with their renowned engineering prowess and air of sophistication. It can be a race car, pushing the limits of what is physically possible while producing glorious sounds and employing cutting-edge technology through intense competition to determine who is the best. It can be a Japanese halo car, my generation's version of muscle cars and the objects of our desire for the past 2 decades or more. For some, there is not just one dream car, but rather an aggregation, their desire being to collect as many as they can. Through all of these examples, none of them are correct or incorrect. The point being, a dream car is a unique, intimate, individual desire that is sometimes difficult to put into words. Dream cars tug on our emotions, causing them to be some of the most highly sought after or coveted items in our lives. I've been fortunate enough to own and or work on many people's dream cars, whether it be my Supra or customers' Supras, muscle cars, Porsches, Lamborghinis, and the list goes on. It is not lost on me that the opportunities I've had are very special and not to be taken for granted. However, as unbelievable as it may be, none of these are really my dream car. I like all of them, and they're special in their own ways, but they fail to make my heart race now like they may have at different points in my life. My idea of a dream car may be different than most. I look at a vehicle as what it can be rather than what it currently is. I search for potential, for character, for a blank canvas that I can use to express myself and push the limits of what my capabilities are as a fabricator and builder of cars. I thrive on the details, the nuances that catch my eye and I cannot stop thinking about. I'm drawn to vehicles that make my imagination run wild. So, what is my dream car? Well, I'm happy to announce that, after many years of searching, I've now added it to my collection. The answer may surprise and or confuse you, but I hope it will make sense by the end of this video. Without further ado, let me introduce it to you.
ボス社長
え、1週間の臨時休暇を取るだって？
やってくれるわ、人味噌屋さん。
走りを忘れた大人たち。
Discount down! No. Oh, if you win, discount.
You'll regret it.
Never.
走りを忘れた大人たち。
I can forget bad things in 30 seconds. I'll enjoy my life.
走りを忘れた大人たち。未知なるドライビングフィール。新しい高級
Aristo.
アリスト。ここに誕生。トヨタから。
I am happy to introduce to you my new to me 1995 Toyota Aristo. So, like I said, this may seem like a bit of a departure and something a bit out of left field as far as the vehicles that I'm interested in. But let me explain to you, hopefully it'll make sense by the end of this video, why this car is so special to me and why out of all of the vehicles that are currently being produced or have been produced, why this is my dream car before anything else. Before we get too in-depth into why this, of all things, is my dream car, let's take a little trip down memory lane and see what the trip was like to go and pick this car up. Well, good morning, everybody. It is currently 4:45, and I am on my way to pick up a new addition to the 2JZ fleet. So we'll talk more about what the car is. I guess you guys will have already seen it, but right now I have an 8.5 hour one-way road trip to make it to Greenville, South Carolina to go pick this car up. So without further ado, I guess with further ado, I have my water, I have my bag of McDonald's, everything that I should need for the road trip. And now, without further ado, let's go ahead and get on the road and get this drive knocked out. Well, it's almost 2 o'clock in the morning, but I finally made it back to the shop. And this was the longest day that I've had in quite a while. So I got up at like 4:45, like you guys saw earlier in the video, and minus the time spent actually picking the car up, the rest of it was spent on the road. So kind of the rough specs for the day. I went to 6 different states: Ohio, Kentucky, Tennessee, South Carolina, North Carolina, and Virginia. I put a little bit over 1,000 miles on the truck, and this was, what if my math is correct, a little bit under 22 hours that it took to do this whole trip. So if I were a smarter person, I probably would have broken it up into 2 days, but I really just wanted to get it knocked out and go get the car and get back here as quickly as I could. So I am deliriously tired at this point, so I'm going to go and get some rest, and we will pick this up later and look at the car a little bit more. A decade or more ago, I had purchased, I believe it was a 1993 Lexus GS300. That car I bought out of Western Ohio. It was a flood car. I bought it for $300 and it had a title. And my intent was to build it into a drag car. It was going to be kind of what my Mark IV Super has ended up being. But the big things I was lacking at that point in time were knowledge and money. So, although I had the best intentions in the world to build something cool out of that car, unfortunately I was unable to do so at that point in time, and I ended up selling the car off for what I had invested into it, so it was a net zero transaction. But ever since then, I've always wanted another S147, Aristo, or GS300, and I've searched on and off for probably over 10 years at this point in time. I searched everywhere that I could think of to search. Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, eBay, Bring a Trailer, so on and so forth. And out of all of those places, the only place that I found a first-gen JZ S147, GS300, or Aristo that kind of checked the boxes for me was a listing on Bring a Trailer. I believe it was another 93 GS300, if memory serves correctly. It was kind of a two-tone gray, very low miles, beautiful car, and I was getting ready to start bidding on it until I noticed that the auction had expired a couple of years prior. So I went through and I tried to find the contact information of the person that was selling it or the person that bought it, and unfortunately was unable to find that, as I was going to see if I could buy it off of the then purchaser of the car. So at that point I kind of thought, man, I love these cars, but maybe it just wasn't meant to be. Maybe I will never find my primo example of one of these, and I kind of chalked it up to just being wishful thinking and a dream that would never come to fruition. And then one day, a few weeks ago, I happened to be browsing Facebook Marketplace, and this car popped up. Now, if I'm being totally honest, I would prefer a GS300 over an Aristo. The whole right-hand drive in the US thing, that has never really appealed that much to me. Seems like more of a hindrance than anything else. But realizing that finding a really clean, good example of a JZS 147 GS300 was going to be next to impossible, and especially trying to find some of the not-so-common replacement parts, interior pieces and things along those lines. If I bought an incomplete car, it was going to be next to impossible to try to reassemble it. So I looked through the listing, and although this car is not perfect, which we will go over in a few moments, it matched and met all of the criteria that I was looking for. It's bone stock, low miles, complete, and in good condition. The price was fair on it, and as I said, Rob, who runs JDM Import Auto Center, I contacted him. We came to an agreement on a price for it, and I set out to South Carolina to pick the car up. It was the longest solo road trip that I've ever done. In one day, I went through 6 different states, probably close to 1,100 miles in just under 22 hours. I did that to avoid the possibility of getting a hotel room and waking up the following morning and having my truck trailer and new pride and joy not sitting in the parking lot any longer. If you guys remember my friend Logan with his beautiful RX-7 race car, he lived through that nightmare in Colorado a year or two ago, and using his misfortune as a point of learning, I didn't want that to be me as well. So I obviously got both myself and the car home in one piece. And it still feels kind of surreal that after all of this time, I finally have my very own JZ S147. Like I said, I never thought this was actually going to happen, and now it is a dream come true. So why a JZS 147 over anything else that could possibly be out there? Well, it's difficult for me to explain, but just the body lines and the overall look of these cars, yes, it is kind of just a mundane sedan, or you can look at it as kind of a mundane sedan. But the fact that it is a 2JZ powered sedan, it shares, from what I can tell, a number of parts with other 2JZ powered vehicles, and I just love the looks and the body lines of these cars. From this perspective in the shop right here, we won't be able to really see a whole lot of it, but for me, when I'm looking at cars, I'll catch them from one particular angle or a few particular angles, and the body lines just scream at me. They speak to me. They are something that I can't stop thinking about and I can't let go of. And out of all of the cars that I've seen, this is probably the most prime example of it. So this car is definitely not perfect, but in the same breath, it's also a nearly 30-year-old vehicle at this point in time. So it has a few scuffs and things like that. There's a little bit of paint missing on the lower part of the bumper right here. The lower moldings, or lower portions of the, I guess would be the passenger door since it's right-hand drive. You can see some paint missing there. There's a scuff on the mirror. There's a scuff on the back bumper over there. And I believe the interior has a couple of stains. All of these things were disclosed to me by Rob prior to me even taking the trip out there to go and look at it and pick it up. But I can deal with paint and body work that way. They make new body filler and they make new paint every single day. Sitting in the car right now, if we look around, the interior is all here. Front seats, back seats, all of the carpets and everything else. And I know the lighting doesn't really do us a whole lot of justice right now thanks to the Mark IV, but everything is here. Everything is in good condition, even down to the little cup holders right here. So these cars are not like a 67 Camaro or something along those lines where you can get all new panels, all new everything for them. These are kind of it's a weird era where unless you find a car that is complete like this, you likely are not going to be able to easily find replacement pieces. And if you are able to, then people will either probably ask a bunch of money for them, or you'll be buying the parts from out of country. I didn't want to deal with that, so the fact that this thing has a really good condition interior, no dash cracks, no anything crazy, was a huge plus. The other huge plus is the chassis is absolutely solid, at least from what I've seen so far. I haven't had the car on the lift yet, but looking around at kind of the common areas that rust would accumulate, like the spare tire well in the trunk, zero rust there, zero any problems, anything crazy. The car is very solid. And this is obviously in kilometers as opposed to miles, but if you see that 90,240 right there, that equates, I believe, to right around 56,000 miles. And I don't know the whole history of this car, but from what I can gather, with how good of condition everything is in, the fact that there aren't really any cigarette burns or anything like that along the A-pillar or anywhere else, this likely, and factoring in the price that these cars were in the time they were offered, they were not cheap cars. I believe this car was probably owned by something like a business executive or something along those lines as a simple commuter car. They kept the miles down on it, kept it nice and everything else, and now I get to reap the benefits of their very good care as time goes on with my ownership of this car. These first generation Aristos came with 3 different engine options. You could have the 2JZ GE, 2JZ GTE, or the 1FC FE V8. And I believe the 1FCs were also available in all-wheel drive, which is kind of neat. I obviously went with one of the 2JZ options, and I went with my favorite of all of them, not that I had much of a choice, but we have the venerable 2JZ GE non-VVTi. So I like these engines more than the GTEs, A, because they are cheaper, at least cheaper to initially get, and B, I like the cylinder head design much more. The exhaust ports are larger and rounder, the intake ports sit higher on the cylinder head, and at least on paper, they appear to lend themselves better to being a more efficient cylinder head. So this engine, there's a sticker somewhere around here that says that some service was done roughly a few thousand miles ago, and that would have been the water pump timing belt, kind of the 60,000 mile service. Now there's obviously corrosion on all of the aluminum stuff, but you figure if this was on a cargo ship coming across the ocean, salt and salt water would have corroded a lot of the aluminum. And the water pump looks less corroded than something like the intake manifold or the distributor. And I did pull this upper timing cover off to look at the belt, the timing belt that is, and the belt appears to be brand new. So Rob was extremely honest and extremely straightforward with everything on this car, so I trust his word implicitly at this point in time. And this engine being low miles and everything else, I have no problem, I have no reason to believe that there will be any engine issues with this thing. I did order parts to do a basic tune-up on it, air filter, I'll do an oil change, fuel filter, spark plugs, wires, distributor cap, so on and so forth. Kind of a basic, simple engine tune-up, just because I don't know the history of the car, and I'd rather have all new parts in those simple areas, simple preventative maintenance. I also need to get new tires for it, as the tires that are on the car, I looked at the DOT code on the side of them, and they're from 2009. So I think 15 years, they've probably served their purpose and lived their life, and I'm going to put the Mark IV's old wheels on this, as I think that will look pretty cool. It's a cheap and easy way for me to get into a staggered set of wheels that are a little bit more aesthetically appealing, at least to me, than the OE wheels that are on it right now. The chassis, like I said, appears to be extremely solid. I haven't found any rust anywhere on this car, and it's straight, and everything appears to be in really good condition to be a great candidate for a build later on. Yes, I do plan on building this car. We'll get into what the plans are in that realm once we get there. But for right now, I'm going to do the basic tune-up, get the new wheels and tires on it, go get plates and registration and everything taken care of. I've already done insurance, and I'll just drive and enjoy it for a little while first. It's been many, many years since I've had a stock blank canvas of a car to start from the ground up with. And it's really cool, and it feels really good to have that opportunity to build something from the ground up rather than trying to fix issues that I caused in the past, find where I had old parts stashed, essentially unscrew up what younger Alex did on other cars. I'm older now, hopefully wiser, and certainly have a better idea of how to put a car together at this point. So this thing will end up being what I think will be my coolest build yet, and it will be one that best fits and suits my interests and desires at this point in time. You know, it's funny how as we grow older and we grow up, how our interests and desires change and how they mature as we mature. So right now we have not a metaphor as opposed to an actual tangible empirical example of this sitting right behind me, with the Mark IV above me and the Aristo behind me. So not even 10 years ago, the Mark IV and racing, those were the predominant goals and interests that I had. Every spare dollar that I had went to the next part, the next piece for the build for the Mark IV, and that was the only thing that mattered. going fast, making a bunch of power, and that whole pursuit. But as time has gone on, and I've taken a step back from racing and from that being kind of my main focus, the less interested I am in racing and in the Mark IV build, and the more interested I am in the Aristo and streetcar builds. Now I know that I'm probably looking at this a little bit through rose-colored glasses at this point in time, as this is brand new to me, and this has been here for a long time. But when I sit and visualize actually sitting in the car being the Mark IV that is, and lining up and making a pass, it doesn't make my heart race. It does not excite me the same way that it once did. Now, by no means is this an announcement that I'm getting rid of the Mark IV, because I certainly am not. And I certainly will still go and make passes with it at some point in time. But all of the time and money and effort and everything spent on this car, at this point in time, if I'm being quite honest, ends up being kind of a big regret. I took what was a nice street car and I built something really cool out of it, but the farther down the rabbit hole that you get in building a car like this, the less and less overall use that you have, the more pinpointed the use and the purpose of that car ends up being. Now, I tried to make this kind of a street strip car with heavier quotation marks around the street side of it, and it is cool to take it out and drive it and to talk to people about it and everything else, but the amount of enjoyment that I derive from it, it pales in comparison to something like the Aristo at this point in time. There is almost, I use the kind of joking analogy that to take the Mark IV out, you go through a pre-flight checklist almost. You check fuel, you check transmission fluid level, check air pressure and all of the tires, check, so on and so forth. And that takes a lot of the fun, at least for me, out of doing anything with the car. When you have to do a list of chores before you take the car out and do anything, some days that's fine. Other days, well, I could do that, or I could just drive a daily driver, drive the Aristo or something along those lines. It's much more enjoyable for me to hop in and go than it is to sit there and do a laundry list of chores just to be able to get the car out the door, let alone being frightened of somebody running into you, running into a deer, breaking down, so on and so forth. I almost went too crazy with the Mark IV, and like I said, it isn't something, what it is now doesn't match up to what my desires and goals are at this point in time. So nothing big is going to change with the Mark IV right now, aside from getting the Haltech install finished up on it. But I don't quite know what the future holds for it. We may take all the crazy stuff off and build something else. I don't know just yet. But we'll cross that bridge later. But for right now, the focus will be on getting the maintenance done on the Aristo so I can take it out and drive it, especially with autumn coming and nice, cool autumn weather. I can't wait to go out and cruise this thing around, windows down, on a nice 50 or 60 degree day, and just be in my element that way. Beyond that, we also obviously have to finish the SC300 up, and that car I'm really, really looking forward to, as it is kind of the middle ground between the Aristo and the Mark IV. And having a fun street car, maybe that will reignite the fire inside of me to go back out and to race the Mark IV again, and to have that be kind of a predominant goal and focus. But I have some really cool ideas for the Aristo. We're not going to get to them just yet, as I want to do this as kind of a build for me. And I'll certainly take you guys along on the journey with me. I really look forward to that. But this will be something, hopefully it will be my nicest build thus far. That's kind of the goal. We'll see if I can accomplish that goal as time goes on and we start diving into this car to build it into something really, really special. So the moral of the story for this video is, after many, many years of searching, I finally found the one that got away, and a car that I've wanted since I was in my early 20s. It's finally here, it's finally mine, and I can do whatever I want with it. So, like I said, I'm really looking forward to getting to that build, and it's been a while since I started from the bottom and built up from there. But I will stop running my mouth at this point in time, and let's go ahead and wrap this one up. So thank you guys, as always, for coming along on all these different journeys, all these different adventures with me. And I hope that you guys are excited as well to see what happens with this car. Like I said, it may not look like much right now, and it still may not make sense to some of you why, out of everything, this is the car that I wanted. But hopefully, as time goes on and I make progress with this build, it'll start to make more sense to you. And even if it still doesn't, hopefully it will end up being something cool that you can appreciate at the end of the day. With all that being said, that'll be the end of this one. So as always, be sure to subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment, check out the website for manifolds, for merch, for all things good that way, including my 15th anniversary t-shirts and hoodies available through the end of 2024 and able to be found in the description below. But with all of that being said, that will be the end of this one, and I will see you guys in the next episode.